As I was saying earlier, it is good to see each of you back tonight. This will be short and sweet tonight. I have just a few musings. If you would, look with me in Mark chapter 16. And I'll try not to give anybody any scares tonight. In Mark chapter 16, beginning in verse 1, and when the Sabbath was passed, Mary Magdalene and Mary the mother of James and Salome had brought, had bought sweet spices. Can't get my throat cleared. That they might come and anoint him. Very early in the morning, the first day of the week, they came unto the sepulchre at the rising of the sun. And they said among themselves, Who shall roll away the stone from the door of the sepulchre? And when they looked, they saw that the stone was rolled away, for it was very great. And entering into the sepulchre, they saw a young man sitting on the right side, clothed with a long white garment, and they were frightened. And he said unto them, Be not affrighted. Ye seek Jesus of Nazareth, which was crucified. He is risen. He is not here. Behold the place where we laid him. But go your way and tell his disciples and Peter that he goeth before you into Galilee. There shall ye see him as he said unto you. And they went out quickly and fled from the sepulchre, for they trembled and were amazed. Neither said they anything to any man, for they were afraid. Now when Jesus was risen, early the first day of the week, he appeared first to Mary Magdalene, and she went and told them that had been with him, as they mourned and wept. Now, I think I'm going to need this stool tonight after all. Brother Jacob can adjust that when he gets back. By way of introduction, Jesus has been in the tomb, or at least his body has, for 3 days. Mary, and Salome have come to anoint his body with spices, which to me is an indication that they haven't been listening. Because all the way up to the crucifixion, all for the week prior to the crucifixion, Jesus spent the entire week telling his disciples, look, this is what's going to happen. They're going to kill me, and on the third day, I'm going to arise. But we can't really fight the fault of women, because the apostles were the same way. They just, when they saw him, they thought they'd seen a ghost. But at any rate, this is where we are. They came and were intending to anoint the body, but he's already risen. He's not there. Again, verse 1, when the Sabbath was passed, Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome brought spices, or sweet spices, that they might come and anoint him. And very early in the morning, the first day of the week, they came unto the sepulchre at the rising of the sun. So they are there at daylight. They're questioning among themselves in verse 3, who's going to roll the stone away? Now, we have a lot of new members, so I can't say most of you have, but some of you have seen the pictures that we took when we were in Israel, and you saw how great a stone there was in front of the tomb there in the garden tomb at Gordon's Calvary. And you know, it feet for one man to move that stone. I mean, it would almost have to be Samson or Hercules. Hercules doesn't exist, so it had to have been Samson. But at any rate, it's already moved. Both Luke and John say they found the stone removed. In Luke chapter 24, verse 2, they found the stone rolled away from the sepulchre. In John chapter 20 and verse 1, it says the first day of the week came Mary Magdalene early, when it was yet dark under the sepulchre, and seeth the stone taken away from the sepulchre. But Matthew's account is different. Matthew says, and behold, there was a great earthquake. Matthew chapter 28, verse 2. It's going to be short, so I can take my time and let y'all follow along with me. Matthew chapter 28 and verse 2. Matthew says, and behold, there was a great earthquake, for the angel of the Lord descended from heaven and came and rolled back the stone from the door and sat upon it. Now, this caught my interest. And the longer I thought about it, the more it made me think of of our resurrection and how our bodies are going to be raised and reunited with our spiritual body. Something that I had not ever noticed before in Matthew was the phrase "angel of the Lord" and his appearance in verse 3 of Matthew chapter 28. There are 79 verses in the Old Testament that refer to the angel of the Lord, and the vast majority of them are specifically referring to the Lord himself. We know that Jesus had his beginning with his birth from the Virgin Mary. But we know that the second person of the Godhead has always existed. And he had a physical presence or appearance in the Old Testament before his birth into this fleshly world. And as we look at this, we find at this sepulchre, in Matthew's account, he is sitting on, well, let me just turn over here. Behold, there was a great earthquake, for the angel of the Lord descended from heaven and came and rolled back the stone from the door and sat upon it. He's sitting on top of the stone. And in verse 3 it says, his countenance was like lightning, and his raiment white as snow. When we look at this, if we'll look at his appearance, his countenance is like lightning and raiment is white as snow. This very much compares to what Peter, James, and John saw on the Mount of Transfiguration when Jesus was transfigured before them. And when we looked at the Mount of Transfiguration before, and I've gone through with most of you, 3 different accounts of the Transfiguration. And what we seem to see is God in his fullness. I mean, we see Jesus and his inner man, his spirit man, both appearing together, so that instead of looking like flesh and blood like you and I look like, he looked like light. Pure light energy. Anyway, in that comparison, Matthew chapter 17, verse 2, it says he was transfigured before them, and his face did shine as the sun, and his raiment was white as light. So, in looking at this, it would seem that this figure that's sitting on top of the stone that was rolled away from the sepulchre is Jesus himself. Now, what thrills me about this, and I told you in the beginning, this is just some of my musings, okay? What thrills me about this is the fact that Jesus arose on his own power. Now, Lazarus came from the tomb, but it was because Jesus said, "Come here." Tabitha awoke from the dead because Jesus touched her and said, "Hey, get up." But Jesus, our Savior, our God in the flesh, arose on his own power. This is not discounting God the Father, because Jesus the Son and God the Father are one. And he arose on his own power. Then, in entering, back in our text, back to Mark, in verse 5, and entering into the sepulchre, they saw a young man sitting on the right side, clothed in a long white garment, and they were affrighted. And he said unto them, "Be not afraid, you seek Jesus of Nazareth, which was crucified. He is risen, he is not here. Behold the place where they lay him. No, he's out there on top of the stone." No. Matthew's account says the angel that sat on the stone announced the resurrection. Matthew 28, 5 and 6. The angel answered and said unto the woman, Fear not ye, I know you seek Jesus, which was crucified. He is not here, he is risen, as he said. Come and see the place where the Lord lay. But Luke and John both speak of two angels, one at the head and one at the foot of where Jesus had laid. Luke's account, chapter 24, verse 4. My wife thinks every time that I stop that I'm about to keel over. I'm not. I'm waiting for you to turn there. Luke's account, Luke 24:4 says, "And it came to pass, as they were much perplexed thereabout, behold, two men stood by them in shining garments." And then in John's account, John chapter 20 and verse 12, "And seeth two angels in white, sitting, the one at the head and the other at the feet, where the body of Jesus had lain." But neither of these appearances, neither in Luke's account or John's account, appear as the one who was sitting on the stone. Again, back to the magnificence of the fact that God could literally die and resurrect himself. I'm saying. Apparently, God the Father did not die. He did not go out of existence. But God in the flesh literally died and rose again on his own power. If that don't thrill you about the God we serve, Allah never did that. Krishna never did that. Buddha never did that. Muhammad never did that. Because they couldn't. Just like the gods that the people worshipped in the Old Testament, Molech and Baal or Baal and all of those different false gods. They were just nothing. They were what men thought up, carved out of wood or stone. You know, and since this is my musings and I've gotten there, let me say this. It's always kind of tickled me. I got that word from David Phillips. I don't know why I used it. It's always tickled me how that they would worship something that they carved out themselves, and when they moved it, they had to pick it up and move it themselves. What did God do over the tabernacle when he wanted to move? He got up and moved and said, y'all follow me. Way off track. Way off track. Neither of these appearances, though, neither of these angels appear as the one sitting on the stone. And you know, that's the thing that I keep coming back to, is the fact that our God is so awesome. We sing a song, My God is Real. Real in my soul. It don't matter whether it's in my soul or not, he's real. I mean, that's the whole point. God is real. But anyway, in verse 7, it says, go your way, tell his disciples and Peter that he goeth before you into Galilee. There shall you see him, as he said unto you. Why do you suppose he would single out Peter? Tell his disciples and Peter. I've been sitting here telling you what a wonderful, marvelous God we serve. We serve such a wonderful and marvelous God that he cares for us even when we are down. Don't you think Peter might be feeling pretty despondent right now? I mean, he's boasted, Lord, I'll die with you. And a few hours later, he's slinking off into the corner and saying, I don't know him. Luke chapter 22, verse 33, he said unto him, Lord, I'm ready to go with thee, both to prison and to death. And then the next thing you know, he's saying, I don't know him. We have such a wonderful God who loves us and cares for us on our high points and our low points. He cares for us when we are thrilled to death to serve Him. And He cares for us when we're kind of hid off in the corner saying, I don't really know Him. You say, I ain't never done that. Whoa, now. Never been a point where you were in a crowd and you had an opportunity to speak up for the Lord and you said, no, I think I'll just keep quiet. Same difference. And my feet still smell. After his conversion, after Peter was converted, and this is not his salvation, but Jesus said to Peter, Peter, after you're converted, strengthen the brethren. And what he was telling Peter was, Peter, you have experienced what it's like to try and serve me in your own strength. Didn't work out. But he said, after your conversion, what he was telling Peter is, Peter, once you realize that your only strength is the strength that you have through me, then you teach others that same thing. After his conversion, he wrote 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 3. I'm not about to fall off my stool. I'm just waiting. Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, which according to his abundant mercy hath begotten us again unto a lively hope by the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead, to an inheritance incorruptible, undefiled, and that fadeth not away, reserved in heaven for you, who are kept by the power of God through faith unto salvation, ready to be revealed in the last time. How are we kept? By his power. Back to the beginning. That mighty one who's sitting on the stone, whose face shines like the sun, and his garment is white as light. And Peter had learned to live in the Lord's strength and not his own. But apparently he learned it well because he was able to come, as Jesus said, and strengthen the brethren. He wrote these words not only for the brethren that he walked and talked with, but he wrote these words for you and I. We can't do anything in our own strength. You know, if we try and do things in our own strength, a lot of times we get ahead of God and his plan for us, because he does have a plan for us. He has a plan for each and every one of us, because he loves us. In verse 8 of our text, they went out quickly and fled from the sepulchre, for they trembled and were amazed. Neither said they anything to any man, for they were afraid. Matthew's account says they departed quickly from the sepulchre with fear and great joy, and did run to bring his disciples word. Luke's account says, and returned from the sepulchre and told all these things unto the 11 and to all the rest. It was Mary Magdalene and Joanna and Mary the mother of James and other women that were with them, which told these things unto the apostles. And then verse 10 of our text just simply says, Mary Magdalene told the disciples. She went in and told them that had been with him as they mourned and wept. The no man of this verse, when it says they went out and told no man, this is the crowd. You know, it's early morning. It's just turning daylight, but there's people in the street already. Now, it wasn't Cindy, because she don't get up at daylight. And I don't get up before 7 o'clock. Mike's up before daylight. But there's people out in the streets, what I'm getting at. There's people out doing business. They didn't talk to anybody. Hi, how are you? Nothing. You know, just, they made a beeline for where the disciples are, or where the apostles are. Normally, if you were out that early in the morning, you saw someone, hi Joe, how you doing? Hi Mary, that looks like an awfully heavy load. You know, they hadn't stopped to talk to anybody. They were a little afraid at what they'd seen, but they were also overjoyed at what they'd seen. And they couldn't wait to get there and tell the apostles, the other disciples, we've seen him. Now, Mary Magdalene is the one who says, I've seen him. I've seen him. But I think the others saw him too, sitting on that stone. Well, the conclusion I want to draw tonight is simply this, folks. The resurrection is the center of our faith. If Christ is not risen, 1 Corinthians 15:14, if Christ be not risen, then our preaching vain, then is our preaching vain. It's leaving out a verb. And your faith is also vain. If there's no resurrection, we're wasting our time. But there is. He was seen of the apostles. He was seen of Paul. He was seen of, according to 1 Corinthians 15, he was seen of over 500 brethren at one time, who all testified that he is risen. I have not seen him, but one day I will. You know, at David's I don't know what you call it, memorial. I told the story about something David and I had done, and then I said, but that was then, and now he's seen Jesus face to face. One day, so will we. Let's go into our prayer time.